very small. Yes, yes. And a beautiful building behind it, that's our design museum. It's closed currently due to renovations. So this is the lovely last remaining wooden facade that we have left in the city. We used to have more than 3,000 of these types of facades, this type of facades. Now only one. Most houses were built in wood. Only the rich people could afford their house was built in stone. It's a restaurant nowadays and a bed and breakfast. Then across the bridge, one of the most famous and infamous buildings that we have here in the city, which can be only one in the end. And it's one and only Count's Castle. The castle of the Counts of Flanders. Yes, look at it there. Yes, well, the dungeons and the cellars, they go back to the 10th century, more than 1,100 years old. In those days, it was just a wooden fortification. A couple of centuries later, in the year 1180, it became a stone structure, and at the same time, the official residence of the Counts of Flanders, which would remain the case until the 15th century. That's why we call it the Castle of the Counts. There is a museum in there nowadays. It's an interesting collection, torture instruments, etc. It's not beautiful, but interesting. And well, the castle here, there's actually an interesting story about it, because the castle has been occupied only one time in its entire history. Strange enough, but it's true. Not that long ago even. In 1949. Yes, it was occupied for 3 days and 3 nights by students. Yes, and it was their way to protest against the high beer prices. I mean, that's what you get. Don't mess with the beer of the students. Not here in the Kingdom of Belgium. So what did they do? They brought lots of barrels of beer and they hide out in the castle for 3 days and 3 nights. Then the police came, then the firemen came, then the army came, then the president of the United States came. The students refused to leave the castle. Until after 3 days they voluntarily surrendered. Why? Well, they didn't have any more beer and they needed to do something, of course. So they left the castle, and that was the end of the siege. But it's true because, well, what are we? Every November 16th, so tomorrow will be again, that the students, some students in the city can occupy the castle for 1 day, and they throw a party here to remember the beer war, as we call it. So that is life in the student city. Now, one of those students in those days, 1949, later became the president of the university. So if you have a blossoming career, occupy your local castle. Left hand side, see the Cave of the Lovely big willows, very common tree here. On the other side, where the cross gets the wall, that is the Augustine Monastery. And the bridge in front of us, that is the lowest bridge in the entire city. There's some rather famous people who were born here in the city. Nowadays, one of the most famous guys is a football player, soccer player, Kevin De Bruyne. No, it's a very famous guy. He was born here in the city. Yeah, he's rich, of course. Huh? Yes, and another man who was born here was an emperor, Charles V. Carlos V, Charles Quint, Karel V, etc. He was born here in the year 1500, and just across the bridge in front of us we'll see another bridge with 4 large sculptures. And these sculptures are all anecdotes based on the life and works of the emperor. Well, the man himself was born in this neighborhood, right here on our left-hand side. The court of the princess, very beautiful neighborhood, and in those days it was a walled, a fortified neighborhood, which was back then private property of the royal family. They were very self-sufficient, they had their own farms, breweries, bakeries, and all that, everything they needed. They even had a private zoo with some lions and other wild animals. That must have made quite an impression. Well, the emperor was a very remarkable man in many ways. He was not very popular in the city. He was loved a bit, but was not really popular. He raised lots of taxes, you know, he tortured many people. Well, not himself, but you know, the soldiers, of course. So that's not really, you know, he wasn't really the most popular guy. But he still was a very remarkable man. Also with his private life, he must have had around 80 children. So he was very, also traveling a lot, of course. Very busy man. Just 80 children, just try to remember the names of your children. Quite an administration. I have two. I really struggle. So yes, that was common, of course, in those circles. I have some ducks from the 15th century. Quite rare. We have lots of factories, and in a few moments you'll see another beautifully restored former textile factory. But first the chimney, you see the square one, square chimney, just like the oldest one. We have two types of chimneys, the square ones and the round ones. The square ones are the oldest, but they were, well, there was a problem because they were difficult to clean, especially in the corners, so they could catch fire easily, which is a problem. It's not the idea, I know, to have a chimney that's burning. So we switched the designs into round ones. Don't have any corners, of course, and that was the golden ticket. So if you see these square chimneys, these are actually the oldest chimneys or factories on the European continent. But the round ones are the most common ones. But still, we have 3 or 4 of these square ones left. Last remaining wall of yet another former textile factory on our right hand side. Now, City of Ghent used to be a wall city, a fortified city. It was a wall all around City of Ghent for many centuries, till 160 years ago, 165 years ago. And we used to have 6 city gates to get in or get out of the city. They're all gone, except for the one right here in front of us. The last remaining city gate, which was a fortified lock, and at the same time a city gate. It was actually the gate for the boats, for the barges, who came in out of the city. And remember, I told you we cut up this canal in about 5 pieces. And now I can show you why we did that. You see the hall there, the gate, the entrance, the lock, the exit, or how you want to call it. It's actually very small, isn't it? It's very narrow, it's not very high. So this gives you an idea of the size of the boats in those days, 600, 700, 800 years ago. They were much smaller, of course, than they are nowadays. And nowadays you have these large, huge vessels. So you have another canal about 2 kilometers that way that we use. And here we do, well, guided boat trips, which you are part of. Now, technically, you can still go towards the North Sea. You can, but you need to go on land in between. So it's actually very nice canal that goes throughout the northern part of East Flanders. And so, a place you probably would never end up if you